Hello everyone, you are all welcome back. It's a great pleasure having you all with us again. This event is hosted by Richflood, a leading continental provider of environmental and social due diligence service for investment in Africa. Integrating sustainability into remediation provides the best approach, which involves remediation activities that eliminate and control unacceptable risk in a safe and timely manner, as well as maximizing the overall environmental, social, and economic benefits of the remediation work. Just a quick recap. As discussed during the morning session by Engineer Olatokunbo Karimo, a DPR representative, adopting sustainability as a framework for remediation projects helps reduce long-term liability and costs. Therefore, during this afternoon session, we are all going to listen to other contributors who will enlighten us on how site remediation should be carried out in order to manage contamination and reduce risk to human health and the environment. Just in case you missed the morning session, this recording will be made available on our Richflood YouTube channel. This session will last for an hour, but before I invite the contributors, let me quickly go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. Firstly, this workshop will be recorded and made available on our Richflood's YouTube channel. Next, all participants are in listening only mode. Furthermore, rename yourself and add your organization after your name in brackets so that you can be properly identified. Finally, poll questions will be utilized during the course of this workshop, and we will appreciate your participation. Let me also inform us that we all have the opportunity to send in questions at any time during the presentation, and our speakers will address them during the question and answer session at the end of their presentation. To send in your questions, kindly utilize the chat box, which is located at the bottom of your screen on a computer and at the top on your tablet, and kindly include your name and your location. I will now like to introduce the presenter for this section in person of Mr. Adeola Olafemi John. Mr. Adeola Olafemi John is a Chief Environmental Scientist at the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSRA. He has worked in different capacities with NOSRA and at different locations across the country. He has carried out field operations in the upstream and downstream sector, including spill impact assessment, damage assessment, and others with over 10 years of experience. Also, we have Mr. Emmanuel Chukwu, an environmental expert with over 11 years of experience handling various remediation projects with some major IOCs, as well as working with DPR, NOSRA, and HYPA in delivering remediation projects in Nigeria. He has also been involved in the Ogoni Clean Up projects sponsored by UNEP in collaboration with the federal government of Nigeria. Right now, I will hand over to Mr. Adeola. Thank you, Mr. Adeola.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you can hear me. My audio is very poor here. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you, sir. You're
Okay.
welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. I bring glad tidings from the Director General, Chief Executive of NOSDRA, that's the National Oil Spill Detection and Response. Well, the topic before me today is remediation management, incorporating sustainability considerations into remediation projects. Well, I will do a brief run through of what we have for you today, looking at the introduction, a preamble of oil and gas activities in Nigeria, causes of oil spills, impact of oil spills, then what is remediation? Because that's the crux of our discussion today. And the types of remediation, some of the sites we have attended to in NOSDRA, then the NOSDRA and Ogoni cleanup being a major remediation project in Nigeria, then the high achievements of those trusts and agency in terms of sustainability. Then we go beyond remediation as an agency. What do you expect? Then the challenges, the way forward, and the brief conclusion. So by introduction, I say it's a good thing and we appreciate Richflood because we've had a couple of engagements with Richflood and it's been really rewarding. Through Richflood, we've been able to reach out to communities, to consultants, to personnel. So from the Director General, I say a big thank you to Richflood for this forum of interaction. Then the topic today is very apt because it's in direct correlation with the United Nations focus on ecosystem restoration. You know, the endpoint action, that's by preamble now. Exploration of oil and gas started in Nigeria in the 1950s, precisely 1956 in Oloibiri, Bayelsa State. And to date, we have about 7,000 kilometers of pipeline network. We have like 5,000 oil wells scattered all over Nigeria. We have like 300 oil fields. We have like 275 flow lines. We have about 22 petroleum storage depots and still increasing. We have officially 4 refineries and more are still coming on board. And with all this, we have significant environmental pollution that has taken place over time. And with the discovery of oil, it has come with its blessings and it has come with its negatives. So it takes us to what is an oil spill. In simple layman's term, when oil escapes containment, it's a spill. The containment may be a pipeline, it may be a storage vessel, it may be a storage tanker, it may be a transport tanker, but the moment it escapes containment, it's a spill. And what causes oil spills? Basically, we have equipment failure as a cause of oil spill. We have sabotage. It can be in form of blasting, it can be in form of hacksaw cuts, it can be in form of social vices, maybe for economic gains. Then we have operational errors. That's caused maybe by human error due to human judgment. So all these cumulatively affect our environment because when they happen, they don't remain in one place. It's a fluid, it's a liquid, it keeps moving. And so when spills happen, what happens to our environment? We see a disruption of balance in our ecosystem. Of course, the ecosystem is comprising of the environment, it's comprising of me and you, it's comprising of air and our water, which makes up the environment. So when it happens, there's a disruption, there's a slight tilt. It can be manifested through withering of vegetation. It can be manifested through impact on our waters, through impact on our lands, which ultimately affects our drinking waters, our farmlands, and other stuff. Then it can cause reduction in economic potential of an area. Because you agree with me that when spills happen, people that are fishermen will tend to lose their source of fishing. People that are farmers will tend to stop farming for that period because it affects their means of livelihood. So invariably, it affects our economy. Then because of all this, the government in its wisdom, due to the OPRC convention, decided to set up NOSDRA as an institutional framework to handle all matters relating to oil spills. NOSRA was actually set up to address environmental challenges that arise from oil spillages and related challenges. The agency was established by an act of the National Assembly, that's Act number 15 of 2006, under the Federal Ministry of Environment. And our duty mainly is to coordinate and implement the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. That's like a plan to respond to oil spill incidents. And NOSRA is the custodian of the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. And based on this, we encourage and implore all oil operators to key into the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. That is to develop a local plan that is in tandem with the national plan, such that when spills happen, sometimes they can respond individually, they can respond as in cooperatives, that's like a mutual assistance plan, and they can respond based on international cooperations. Just like my colleague from the DPR said in the morning, we have the Clean Nigeria Associates as a mutual assistance plan. We have the Oil Spill Response Limited, that's in the Southampton at the United Kingdom. So based on this, NOSRA is a custodian of the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. Then NOSRA has a vision, we have a mission. Our vision is to create, nurture, and sustain zero tolerance for oil spill incidents in the Nigerian environment. By this, our dream is actually to see that no spill happen. But unfortunately, we cannot do without spills happening, because whether not by the cost of the operator, sometimes our boys want to eat and they say our own matching ground or whatever, spills do happen, even though it is our vision that we do not see oil spills in the Nigerian environment. But when they peradventure happen, it is now our duty to ensure timely response to those spills. Then our mission is to restore and preserve our environment. That is when the spills happen, by ensuring best oil field practices, storage and transmission practices in exploration, production, and the use of oil in the quest to achieve sustainable development in Nigeria. So you see that the topic today is apt. We're talking about sustainability, at the same time talking about the use of our resources, at least the maximization of the use of our resources to the benefit of Nigeria as a country and to us as individuals. So that takes me to the functions of NOSRA. Sorry, if you're following me, please. That's on the slide 9. I want to just run us through the preambles before the main crux of the day. One of the functions is to establish a national operational organization that ensures a safe, timely, effective, and appropriate response to major and disastrous oil pollution. By this, we coordinate response. It is expected that every operator, as in the polluter, should be able to take care of the spill, but the response has to be coordinated in the sense that we need to bring in resources from cooperating agencies like the DPR, like the State's Ministry of Environment, like the communities, and like the local government, such that when spills occur, we respond timely to it. Because you agree with me that the community people are actually even the first receptors when spills happen. So when it happens, we expect that, okay, reports are made, at least within the first 24 hours, you must report a spill if it happens. Then we as an agency coordinate response together with all other stakeholders and ensure a timeous response. Then again, we identify high-risk areas as well as priority areas for protection and cleanup. You'll agree with me that there are some areas that need protection, and because of that, we coordinate response towards those areas first. Like we look at our mangrove swamps, which are the spawning grounds for our fishes. We look at our recreational beaches. We look at our waterways. We look at our farmlands. We look at our fish ponds. When spills happen, it is the responsibility of the agency to coordinate and identify the high-risk areas for protection, such that if need be, we need to deploy booms as quickly as possible. We effectively coordinate movement of men and materials to site so that the spills do not spread beyond what we expect. Then again, we establish a mechanism and assist to where expedient and direct the response, including capacity of personnel on board to mobilize resources to save lives. Because principally, you agree with me that spills affect the environment, it affects us directly or indirectly. And when they happen, there's a tendency that it can affect lives because spills can result in fires, they can result in chokes, they can result in all manner of a sequence of events. So we coordinate this and we establish to maximize such that this does not happen. And again, we clean up to the best practicable extent when spills happen. Then again, we ensure funding where appropriate. Sometimes you may need to deploy resources to tackle spills when they happen. So we coordinate the deployment of materials and men and resources where appropriate. Then for facilities, we carry out a program of activation, training, and drill exercises so that we test the level of preparedness. Because sustainability is about preparedness, is about even ensuring that spills don't happen. And when they eventually happen, they are easily controlled. But when you don't have men that are ready to deploy, it's like having nothing. So we may ensure that men on the operators are ready and able to deploy as at when necessary. Then the next slide, the crux of the matter. Slide 10, please. What is remediation? See, the process of removing pollution contaminants, that is oil in this case, from environmental media, such as surface water, groundwater, sediments, or our lands, in order to return it to its pre-disturbed state, is simply remediation. As much as possible, we are trying to make the language of this presentation as simple as possible, so that every participant can understand the direction of flow and where we are going to. And remediation, in a layman's language, starts from the moment cleanup starts. Because the moment you clean up starts, you recover free-phase crude. And what we encourage and advise is when spills happen, you stop the flow, that is you control. And you contain, as in stop the spread as much as possible. You recover whatever has entered the environment, and then you clean up to the best practicable extent. That is remediation. So based on that, remediation consultants are engaged by the agency and the operators so that when spills happen, when cleanups take place, remediation starts. And slide 11, please. Remediation has different types. And all these types are actually dependent on the level of impact on the environment, the land usage in the area, the type of contaminants that has contaminated the area, then the depth of contamination. From the simple techniques of land spreading and land farming and land washing to maybe soil stabilization, more complex methods of vitrification, of maybe surface or soil vapor extraction, or encapsulation, or electrokinesis, or bioremediation. So most of all these processes depend on what medium is contaminating the environment. Like for lighter products, like petroleum products, it's easily vaporizable. So sometimes a simple method as simple as land spreading will aerate the ground and ensure cleanup in good time. Sometimes, if the impact is a little deep-seated, we may have to do something like soil vapor extraction, where we do venting, we put some vents into the ground and we introduce heat to the ground. So with this heat, the contaminant vaporizes and they are recovered in the environment. Sometimes we use methods like electrokinesis, where we introduce electrical charges to the ground. These charges ultimately introduce heat to the ground and the contaminants are vented out. Then sometimes we use methods like vitrification, where we get an air spudging tank to recover products and recirculate them. And sometimes when the impact is deep-seated and have hit the water table, we even use methods like pump and treat to take care of our groundwater. By this, we try to remove as much of the contaminants as possible from the groundwater, treat the groundwater, and possibly return back to the environment. Then we have the commonest one, which is remediation by enhanced natural attenuation. Sometimes when you say the nature of the site, you may realize that the site doesn't really need to be disturbed based on your risk-based corrective action. If you say you want to remediate some site, you may end up doing more harm than good to the site. So that's why we sometimes advise, okay, like let's consider our mangrove swamps. Some of them are spawning grounds for our fishes. So if you say you want to go and maybe do flushing of the mangrove, you end up destroying the fingerlings in the mangrove. So sometimes we recommend that we just use enhanced natural attenuation, whereby we just maybe add nutrients, fertilizers, whatever, to improve the recovery of the ground. And next slide, please. Next slide, please. In the course of the operation of the agency, since its inception in 2006, we've had and still updating anyway, about 10,364 joint investigation visits. Some of them have been completely closed out. Some are still in various stages of closeout. But so far, we've had a total of 2,828 sites completely closed out. And, sometimes you may look at the figure as being considerably low, but again, we do not certify a site that is not completely closed out. So we ensure that sites are completely certified and recovered before we say they are closed out. So to this end, we encourage our contractors and the community to give access for our personnel and men when they go out to sites so that these things can be easily and readily achievable. Then next slide, please. High prep and nose dry. The Ogoni Restoration Project is a major remediation project that is currently ongoing in Nigeria. Over time, there has been significant environmental pollution in the Ogoni region of the Niger Delta area. It has affected our environment, it has affected livelihoods, and has necessitated a drastic action, which resulted in a presidential intervention. And the presidential intervention is actually reflected in the presidential initiative that has brought forth the High Prep Ogoni Restoration Project. The initiative started in 2005. It's an Ogoni Shell initiative originally and supported by UNEP, United Nations Environmental Programme. Relevant stakeholders have been engaged so that this program is a success. NOSDRA being the sole agency responsible for oil spill management under the Federal Ministry of Environment is the key driver of this program. And because we are the key driver, we ensure that sites are properly cleaned up so that the Ogoni area of the Niger Delta will be a place to go back to and say, yes, we have achieved something. And again, it's a pilot project. We are thinking and planning to extend to other areas of the Niger Delta where impacts have been severe. But for now, the Ogoni project is what is on ground. Then the essence, like I said before, is to ensure full recovery of impacted sites. And that is a core mandate of the agency, and that is sustainability. So the next slide, please. Achievements of NOSDRA and the Ogoni project. The agency, through its sustainability programs, has ensured cleaner waterways and lands through our various site remediation projects. Also, we have been able to generate an environmental baseline data so that when events happen, we can actually make reference to this baseline so that we'll have a starting point and from the end point. By this, I mean, if you have a baseline, you can comfortably say, no, this was what or where we were before this project started. So we should be able to return to that position. And this has been achieved in most communities in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. And of course, you agree with me, that is where most of the spills are predominantly located. Then we have succeeded in helping in the assessment and monitoring of community wells through some of our remediation projects. Some of these spills, when they happen, some are actually deep-seated. And when we go there, over time, sometimes we have accumulation of impacts. And gradually, we begin to monitor and ensure that these sites go back to their original status. And in doing this, we have ensured better and safer drinking water for our community, teeming population. Then the community too have been gradually embracing us, and it's like a win-win situation now. It's even so good now that sometimes before the operators even know that there are spills, they inform us, because that's the level we have gotten to in terms of sustainability. Then a lot of farmlands that were hitherto not usable for farming have been recovered for farming. And I've seen there have been quite a lot of projects in Delta State, in Bayelsa State, even in Akwa Ibom State, such that our farmers can now go back to the farms and start their farming programs. Some of the fish farmers, some of the land farmers have gone back to this project and have started. Then, again, we have been through this, our remediation projects, we have been able to hold a lot of operators responsible and accountable. Before now, I may have to say this, the DPR is the sole regulator in the industry. But the government considered that you cannot be in the industry and regulate the industry full time. So NOSRA was brought in as an eye of the environment. So while we are concerned about the environment and not about the production, they may be on a little side more concerned about the production. So as an eye of the environment, and based on our remediation programs, we've been able to hold a lot of companies accountable and responsible. Then the next slide, please. As of now, the agency is going beyond remediation. When large spills occur, there are always tendencies of minor, medium, major impacts. And these impacts are not just short-term. Some of them are long-term and long-lasting. So to this end, the impacts affect our community settlers. They affect our people. And you agree with me, the community is me and you, because everybody comes from a community. So we are tilting towards the United Nations program of ecosystem restoration. The reality today is we need to restore our environment. The environment plays an important role in what happens to us. Whatever we give to the environment gives back to us. There have been issues of global warming. Of course, when we deplete our vegetation, the direct consequence is global warming and emission of greenhouse gases. When we spoil our waterways, the direct consequence is food shortage. When we affect our drinking waters, the direct consequence is problem for the community settlers. So we are embracing ecosystem restoration as a basic concept and as a basic task towards sustainability. So to this end, the agency is critically taking into consideration injuries to natural resources. And in doing this, we think critically about habitat restoration. And we're doing this through, we conduct post-spill impact assessments in areas where oil spills happen. It is not just enough to carry out remediation. We should know what level of remediation we need to carry out. So the post-spill impact assessment tells us the long and short-term effect of oil spills on our environment. By this assessment, we look at the chemical factors, the biological factors, the physical factors, the socioeconomics and health of the people. Because when spills happen, of course, it is expected that some of these our people even go and swim in the waters. Some of them have lost time due to the spill incident. Some of them have they have their elevated total petroleum hydrocarbon levels. There are elevated polyaromatic hydrocarbon levels. So we look at all these factors and we try to make sure that we take them back to the situation they were before the spill incident. Then we collect data, just like I told you before that we have generated baseline data. We collect data and compare to the baseline data to know how much stress has happened on the environment. Then after this collection, we quantify all these injuries to man and environment. Because whether you like it or not, where vegetation is withered, there is injury on the environment. Where livelihood is affected, there is injury on humans. Where waterways are impacted, there is a stress on the environment. So after this, finally, we develop a restoration plan. By this restoration plan, we try to see, okay, what factors we need to put in place to ensure sustainability and address problems of impacts and associated public losses. By this, we carry out a process called damage assessment. The damage assessment sometimes leads to compensation payments for the injured party. And when you compensate a party that is injured, is encouraged, and they try to move away from this other aspect of spill impacts that we don't like, that is sabotage. Then in doing all these processes, we encourage things like revegetation, just like the agency has done in Ukweneka and in Akwa Ibom State. We encourage things like aesthetic reconfiguration, just like we did in Ibuno Beach in Akwa Ibom State, and a lot of other processes. But again, to achieve this, we have challenges. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Some of these challenges are related to security. Some are related to access. Some are related to capacity. Some are related to funding. And some are related to even standards. Like my colleague in the morning said, the standard that is mostly used in the industry is the EGAS PIN. And we have target values, we have intervention values. By target value, we mean, okay, a value that considerably tells us there is stress on the environment. By intervention value, we mean a critical value such that there must be immediate action taken to take care of the stress on that environment. Let me give an example. Like our total petroleum hydrocarbon intervention level is 5,000 milligram per kilogram, and that is not sustainable. When you have such value and it's our intervention value, but of course, that is the position of the law. So the agency is working seriously and assiduously to ensure that some of these values are reviewed. Contaminant indicators have values, they have target, they have intervention, like heavy metals, like total petroleum hydrocarbon, like BTEX, like polyaromatic hydrocarbons. All these factors have their targets and intervention values. So when there is the United Nations standards, there is the Nigerian standard. So we try as much as possible to get to that standard that defines us as human beings. And that is what we are doing for now. Then in the area of capacity building, we try to build capacity in-house and build capacity of our personnel such that when they go out to sites, they can be able to take decisions effectively and accurately. And again, we encourage interaction with the community. That's why we even train the community men so that when they see spill incidents on their own, they can even do some primary response. Sometimes we encourage them, even something as little as these banana stumps can be used to prevent a spill. Something as little as water hyacinth can be used to form barriers to prevent spills from spreading. So we encourage them again that when they see spills, they should report to us. Because sometimes accessibility is an issue. Like I said, it's a challenge too. The pipelines crisscross swamps and sometimes difficult terrains. And these people stay right there. So we encourage them to report first. Because sometimes the hole may be a pinhole leak and you may not notice a quick drop in pressure. Even when you expect that response will be quick, sometimes you see community challenges. They say freedom to operate, or what my brothers in Bayelsa and Delta will call matching ground. Sometimes they expect you to settle them even when you're going there for intervention. Sometimes sometimes community people tell you, no, allow the spill to get to my farmland so that I can get compensated too. Sometimes it's so funny that to get to sites may take you 2-3 days because of community agitation and issues. Then again, the major challenge that the agency is currently tackling now is artisanal refining. We sometimes call it illegal refining, but in the agency we call it artisanal refining. In the need to make ends meet, a lot of our brothers engage in illegal activities for economic gains. Some even engage in these activities to express displeasure, social problems, But for now, the agency is getting there, and we are prescribing way forward for every of our problems. So next slide, please. The way forward. The way forward, please. Way forward, next slide. For some of these challenges, the agency is trying so much to overcome them. For our artisanal refining issues, recently the agency carried out a 30 days at sea exercise to identify most of these artisanal refining sites with the aim of gradually ending it. It is not easy, but over time, we are encouraged that some of these problems will be solved. We're thinking of encouraging and engaging some of these boys to pull them out of these processes and vocations. We are going to train them and ensure that they don't go back to these vices. We are already developing the modalities for for management of recovered products. Because again, another challenge is the issue of how to get the products out of sight. Sometimes our security men even go there, set the camps on fire, causing more environmental damage. That is disturbing sustainability. So we are creating modalities as in standard operating procedures for managing recovered products, such that when such products are taken, they are taken out of sight and kept, possibly recycled back into the system. Then the agency, even now, we have a desk that handles artisanal refining, so that every issue relating to artisanal refining is properly addressed and taken care of. Then we are improving compliance enforcement. And by these, we have even set up outposts. Currently, we have outposts in a lot of communities in Bayelsa. I can mention Ogwembri community. I can mention Ologobri community, where we have our personnel permanently deployed to respond real time to incidents. This Odimodi community and Escravos community too, we have our personnel stationed there, so that when these spills occur, the operator doesn't need to inform us. We are there real time to attend to them. Then through our laboratory in Port Harcourt, we now have a laboratory. We try to sometimes we have on spills of unknown origin, which we call mystery spills. We try to identify the sources of these spills real time, so that we can track them to source, contain, and recover. Our oil spill trajectory and modeling facilities are in place. And that's why we have an oil spill monitor now. It's an online platform where we track and manage oil spills. You can even access the platform and get real-time information about oil spill incidents in the Nigerian environment. Again, we encourage operators to quickly replace faulty pipes. You know, if your pipelines are corroded, there's a possibility of having a spills from there. So we encourage, that's why we carry out facility inspections regularly, so that when we see this, we tell them, look, this has to be put in place. Then the social side of impact. A lot of our community people feel negative. They feel negative about the way things are running. They feel they are the cow, the cash cow, and they are not really getting much from the system. So sometimes they are disillusioned. They do what they feel is right. So we encourage them through sensitization to, as much as possible, channel their grievances the right way and not go to break our pipelines. Then again, the amnesty program too, it's a federal government program, but we work very closely with the amnesty office to ensure that security is enhanced. As a matter of fact, a lot of the surveillance contractors engaged are actually community-based, so that if my people say, give the thief to guide it for you, so that easily you can be able to keep it. So conclusively, I want to say the agency is mandated to regulate activities in the oil and gas sector, and in order to protect and preserve the Nigerian environment. Though the challenges are enormous, we have been able to weather the storm in pursuing this mandate. NOSDRA has we have ensured an improved quality of drinking water in a lot of communities. We have tried as much as possible to reduce pollution to the barest minimum. We have tried the recovery of arable lands for farming for our team in poverty. You agree with me that when you give someone land to farm, you have improved and increased his chances of success. Then a number of conflicts between operators and community ably settled by the agency through our intervention programs. And recently, we are undergoing a review of our acts so that we can have a more robust enforcement. So thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeola, for this remarkable and illuminating presentation. We will welcome our second presenter for this event. It is a pleasure to have you here with us this afternoon, Mr. Chukwu Emmanuel. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, everybody, for this wonderful opportunity. But however, due to the time spent so far, we're scheduled to have this training for just an hour. I don't think there will be a need for me to continue on this session of the training. So I want to hand over back for a question and answering session in order for us to be able to keep to our timing. Thank you. Over to you back, the moderator.
God bless you, Mr. Emmanuel Chukwu. Okay, Mr. Adeola, during your presentation, we received a couple of questions from our participants. So number one question we have here on our list is from Mr. Wale. He said, how can NOSDRA improve in the areas of remote sensing technology for spill detection and effective cleanup?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you very much. Well, currently, the agency is actually making use of remote sensing techniques. And that's why when spills happen, there is what we call, can you hear me please? That is what we call oil spill trajectory and modeling that we do. By the time it happens, we have parameters like the wind current, wind direction and stuff. We effectively plot that and predict the direction of flow of the crude or the contaminants. So to this end, we have already started using remote sensing techniques. That I can say positively.
Thank you, sir, for that response. We also have a question here. It said, considering the cost of remediation, what local techniques can you recommend for heavy metal contaminated sites? Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, in our climb and in our operations, sometimes we look at the costs vis-a-vis the nature of impact and the risk-based assessment of the site. You know, if we say a cost-effective method and we don't look at the risk level of the site, we may miss it. But for metal contaminants, sometimes we recommend bioremediation. That is phytoremediation. It's an aspect of bioremediation. But again, before we embark on any strategy or technique, we do a test, like a pilot, to ensure that method we want to use will be effective for the site. Let me give you an example. The site in one of our Ogoni sites, we tried using electrokinesis, and we realized that the impact was deep-seated and is not achieving the desired result in our test. So we had to change to another technique. In fact, we had to change and use a better method. So that is it. It depends on, one, how deep-seated the impact is, like I said. It depends on, two, the nature of the impact. But again, he said the contaminant here is heavy metal. So we recommend phytoremediation, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that impactful answer. We also have some questions here. He said, from all of the remediation techniques you just highlighted, which is the best and also cost-effective? Over to you, sir.
If I'm going to be very sincere with you, using a particular technique may not even give the best results. Sometimes we encourage using a combination of methods. Like, let me give an example. If we want to use, let's say, soil vapor extraction, in most cases, we combine with air sparging, so that by the time you are introducing the vapor into the ground, you sparge the air out. Let me give an example again. If we are using, let's say, pump and treat method, we may need to add some elements of some nutrients to propel the recovery of the water. Another example is we are using bioremediation. We may need to do some simple techniques like land spreading, so that you can at first open the ground up. So generally, we encourage a combination of methods to achieve better results. Using one simple method may not give the best result. So we encourage a combination of techniques. And this we have been doing in our sites. And like you said, it's about sustainability. It is not enough to just clean and not get the best result. So we encourage getting the best possible result from our sites. And that's why we combine results. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Also, we have one more question. So this question said, what's the collaboration between DPR, NOSDRA, and HYPRED in carrying out remediation on hydrocarbon contaminated sites? Because I see all agencies seems to perform the same duties in the items of remediation to avoid conflicts. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Like I said, NOSDRA is the eye of the environment. while the DPR represents the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. At some point, functions overlap. But for NOSDRA, we are basically interested in oil spill response as it affects the environment. Whether we like it or not, even agencies like EFCC, ICPC have overlapping functions. So at some point, there will be some point of convergence. At some point, there will be some point of divergence. The ultimate is that we get the best for the environment. And again, it's a multi-stakeholder thing. Even when we go for joint investigation visits, that's JIV, all of us go there as representatives. NOSDRA as the representative of the environment. Even we bring in the State Ministry of Environment, so that even community representatives come, so that we get the best. You bring your idea, I bring my idea, we come to a round table, we come to an agreement. The same joint investigation form is signed, the same post cleanup inspection is carried out. When remediations are going to commence, we give recommendations on a round table. And for the high prep program, it's a shell federal government initiative that translated to the high prep program. Now the program is actually instituted with the Federal Ministry of Environment. And NOSDRA, as the institutional framework for managing oil spills, is tasked with the responsibility of ensuring proper and timely cleanup. And that is why we certify the sites cleaned when it is done. So effectively, and like I said, all of us work together to achieve the same end result. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adiola, for this response. It has been so enlightening session with you. We look forward to having you with us again. Because of our time, we will not be able to take further questions. Please, if you have any further questions and contributions, kindly forward them to info@richflood.com. We want to thank everyone for attending and for your contributions in today's workshop. We hope to see you again. On the 21st of October 2021, we have another upcoming workshop program titled Site Investigation, Risk Assessment and Management. As the registration link for the workshop is in the chat box. In case you missed any of this session, kindly check our YouTube page for recording of this workshop. Before we finally draw the curtains of today's workshop, can we all switch on our video for a group photograph? Please switch on your video for a group photograph.
We have President for Fadno. Thank you very much for coming. Mercy Mali, thank you. NGC, thank you. Sylvia, we appreciate you. Bachi Nana, thank you very much
for participation. Thank you. You all look amazing. Oh, Madam Tina with the NOSDRA team, thank you.
All right, it has been an amazing time with you all. Thank you. Thank you, Prince Ijoma. Thank you, Isaac Julius. You are looking so wonderful. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Bachi, you are welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an amazing time with you all. Thank you once again for joining us. We will be glad to see you all again. Until then, do have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.